Vidadhar Srivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Mare Kabando Matsangin Madguru Manmadana Madnistaraka Madbhagya Ananda Namostate Asaru Saru Tadayin Atinicho Tadakara Anamuncha Karachinmam Premna Hritkatayospura Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devyam Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye Nastavreshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Naishtaki. So we give Godhead the most enlightened and powerful spiritual knowledge. So we pray, following the footsteps of the original speaker of the Bhagavatam, so that we can become empowered to actually say something in regards to the glories of the Lord and his devotees. So today we'll be reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Divinity and Divine Service. And we're going to try to go the whole chapter, but it's unlikely. This is a very important chapter. And like I said, we're trying to create a culture of Bhagavatam. We had our list of goals for the class we read last week, but we'll skip that today because we want to get going. But the culture of Srimad Bhagavatam is that of sadhus, asking questions and answers, asking very wonderful questions and hearing very wonderful answers about the nature of the divine reality, the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the nature of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's devotees. And so the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam mainly deals with the qualifications of the speaker of Srimad Bhagavatam and the hearer. Srimad Bhagavatam explains that there are 10 topics. Atra sargo visargashta, stanam poshanamutayaha, manvantari ishyanukata, nirado muktirashrayaha. There's 10 topics, starting with this sarga, this creation, the process of how the universe came to be. The first step in understanding Krishna. We want to understand the external, how this universe come to be. And so before we begin that part of the Bhagavatam, first hear the history of the Bhagavatam and the qualification of one that should hear Bhagavatam and that one who should speak Bhagavatam. This is what the first canto mainly deals with. It doesn't really deal with the actual substance of the Bhagavatam. It deals with who's hearing, how did Maharaj Parikshit come to be, how did Vyasadeva come to be, how did Shukadeva Goswami come to be. This is the subject matter of the first canto. So we spoke last week. We went through the first chapter. Many of you weren't here, so we'll do a quick review. We did the invocation of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the first 3 verses, which describe what is God, what is the Srimad Bhagavatam, and what is pure devotional service, what is our relationship with him, and what is the qualification of Shukadeva Goswami, the primary speaker of the Bhagavatam. And then we went into the questions of the sages, which is what the chapter is called, Questions by the Sages at the Forest of Naimisaranya. So the sages elected Suta Goswami as the president of their assembly because they were performing a big sacrifice for our benefit. Having understood that Kali Yuga is coming and that the world is going to suffer, the sages decided, let us get together and find a solution to the problems we're facing right now, because they were able to see into the future and understand what's going to happen. And so they elected Suta Goswami as the president, and they began to question him. And they asked 6 primary questions. Does anybody remember any of those questions that were asked by Srila Suta Goswami, asked to Srila Suta Goswami by Shanika Rishi?
What's the highest good for
Yes,
man?
exactly. What is the highest good for man? What is the ultimate good for the people in general? That's the very first question they asked. Anybody else? Remember? So this is important because, as I said, when you read Bhagavatam, you capture. If you hear a question, capture it. This is how to. There's a question. Let me capture this. Let me remember this. Because that's like I explained also in my Sunday Feast lecture. Quality of questions creates the quality of our lives. So there were 6 questions. What is the ultimate good for people in general? What is the essence of all scriptures for the good of all living beings? Why did the Lord appear in the womb of Devaki as the son of Vasudev? Describe the Lord's adventures in his various incarnations. Narrate the transcendental pastimes of the Lord in multi-incarnations. And whom did religious principles take shelter of after Lord Krishna's departure? The sages asked these 6 questions to Sutta Goswami, and now we're hearing the answers to these questions. And this chapter is factually, this is one of the most quoted chapters by Srila Prabhupada in his entire movement, in his entire preaching endeavors. He quoted this chapter so much of the time, and very powerful and important chapter to understand. So we'll just open it up to Divinity and Divine Service, Chapter 2. And we won't read every purport. Like I said, we're going fast. We're mainly going to focus on certain verses. And, we hope that you can go home and read these chapters for the next week. And in that way, you'll continuously develop in your understanding of Srimad Bhagavatam. You have your phone, Siddharth? Yeah. You can read on your phone? Yeah, database.io. All of our books are on there. So we'll just read. I'll read the Sanskrit, these nice verses. Vyasuvacha iti samprasana samhristo vipranam ramaharshali pratipuja vachastesham pravaktum upachakrame. Sri Vyas said, Ugri Shrava, Sutta Goswami, the son of Ramaharsha, being fully satisfied by the perfect questions of the Brahmanas, thanked them and thus attempted to reply. So the first section of this chapter, chapters 1 through 7, this is basically this first 7 verses is basically Sutta Goswami's reply. And the speaker who's going to speak Krishna consciousness, so we're seeing the greatest example of Sutta Goswami. How do we actually process by which we can become Lord? That's what we're hearing here. So then we're here at verse 2 and 3. Verse 2 is a very famous verse. I might butcher this answer. Vetitan maya taya taravo bindus tam sarva bhuta hridayam muni manontasmi. So someone can read. We'll have Govinda Madhava. You can go ahead and read this verse.
Srila Sutta Goswami said, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the great sage Sukadeva Goswami, who can enter the hearts of all. When he went away to take up the renounced order of life, sannyas, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread or the ceremonies observed by the higher castes, his father Vyasadeva, fearing separation from him, cried out, O my son, indeed only the trees which were absorbed in the same feelings of separation echoed in response to the bereaved father.
So here we're hearing about the qualification of Sukadeva Goswami. So Sutta Goswami, before he begins speaking, what's the first thing he does? He offers obeisances to his guru. This is his first act of business. So he offers obeisances to his guru. And we can understand Prabhupada in his purport. Basically, he focused on this point that he went away to take up the renounced order of life, leaving home without undergoing reformation by the sacred thread or ceremonies observed by the higher castes. So what does this mean? This means that the process of real religion is a process of gradual elevation in consciousness. There's a process. And these processes of religious activities, whatever religion you want to call it, in the Catholic Church, they have what's called the 7 sacraments, right? You're baptized, you take communion, you do confession, you get married, you become a priest, you take last rites, you get confirmed. Right? They're called samskaras. There's processes of reformation that one undergoes to rectify and to rehabilitate the consciousness so that it can come to a spiritual understanding. This is the process of religion. Basically what religion is. To lead us to the goal of religion And so what we're going to hear about in this chapter is what is the goal of religion? What is the actual purpose of religion, of spirituality? So Shukadeva Goswami didn't undergo any reformatory practices. Why? Anybody have an idea?
He was born liberated.
He was already liberated. He was already on the platform of pure devotional service. He was already elevated to that stage by birth. Of Sukadeva Goswami, the guru of Shuddha Goswami, and the guru of King Parikshit. So Prabhupada describes that we have, generally we have different ceremonies and we have Varnashram Dharma. One goes through the various processes. One begins generally as a brahmachari. One gets married. Real aspects of their consciousness. One takes manaprast and begins to act as a proponent of spiritual dharma and to teach others, and one takes sannyas, completely leaves the association of the material world to engage fully in spiritual activities, the process of varnashram dharma. And in that way, there's rectificatory, purificatory processes one is going through. Shukadeva Goswami didn't undergo any of those. So then a point is noted that our great Acharya, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he explains, he's like a very rasic and poetic in his commentaries. And he says that the trees echoing black implied here that the rule at the time that even the trees were meditating, they were hearing and echoing back what was being spoken by Shukadev. It's echoing back. This is the process of repeating, right? We're repeating what our guru says. So this next verse, verse 3, is one of my favorite verses in terms of Sanskrit. I love it. It's one of the most beautiful verses because Kirtan Yagya Prabhu quotes this verse before every Bhagavatam class. And you may just recognize it from hearing him quote it if you come to class. Yashanubhava makila shruti sharamekam adhyatma deepam atatir shatam tamondam samsarinam karunaya parana guyam tam vyasasunam upayami gurun muninam. Bala, go ahead and read the translation.
Let me offer my respectful obeisances on him, Sukha, spiritual master of all sages, the son of Vyasadeva, who, out of his great compassion for the gross materialists who struggle to cross over the darkest regions of material existence, spoke this most confidential supplement to the cream of Vedic knowledge, after having personally assimilated it by experience.
So, a few points here. One point I'll make back in the last verse is that Shukadeva Goswami can enter the hearts of all. So he's not a normal sage. He's obviously part of Krishna. He's part of Krishna's entourage. Actually, he's Radharani's personal parrot in the spiritual world. So he's an eternal associate of Mati Radharani and Krishna. And so Shukadeva Goswami is the spiritual master of all sages because he's the speaker of the Bhagavatam, which is the ultimate cream of Vedic knowledge. So here we're hearing respectful obeisances unto Shuka, the spiritual master of sages and the son of Vyas, who out of compassion for gross materialists spoke this most confidential supplement to the cream of Vedic knowledge after having personally experienced it. So we have to experience Bhagavatam. We have to experience it. It's not that we read a scripture and it's just we have it in our heads. We actually want to live Bhagavatam. And that's why we're doing this, because we'll hear, actually, as we hear the Bhagavatam, we'll realize that the point that's being made time and time again is to hear the Bhagavatam. And we want to create this culture, like I'll say again, like last week I spoke this many times. We want to have a culture of questions, a culture of good questions. That's really what's going to help us advance as a group. And one of the goals of this class is to create loving relationships with each other. We have to actually develop loving relationships with each other on the basis of Srimad Bhagavatam. So in that way, we can make progress. So make sure we ask questions. Think. If you have some question on the verse, hot. All good. But yeah, so this is our answer. And then it's nice to point out here that he assimilated it by experience. And how did he experience the Bhagavatam? Not wrong. He knows the answer. How did Srila Shukadev Goswami experienced the Bhagavatam. How did he experience it from his father? He heard it. So he heard the Srimad Bhagavatam, and in this way he personally experienced it. So the process of realizing the Bhagavatam is in hearing. By hearing in the proper mood, and we'll get to hear that as we develop the qualifications of a hearer of spiritual knowledge, we develop the qualifications of a speaker and a person who's able to live and realize spiritual knowledge. This is what we want. We don't want to just see it as kind of a philosophy. We want to live the Bhagavatam. Actually, we want to become part of the Bhagavatam. That's what we're trying to do here. We're recreating what's happening 5,000 years ago at Naimisaranya. We become a sage page by page, as Vaisheshika Prabhu says. Okay, so we'll go on. I want to just, I want to make this point that Vyasadeva wrote so much scriptures. It's unbelievable. And the cream of all those scriptures is the Brahma Sutra. That's the essence of all of the things Vyasadeva wrote. And the cream of the Brahma Sutra is the Srimad Bhagavatam. So it's the topmost piece of Vedic literature, which is filled with the conclusions of spiritual knowledge. So we'll go to text 4, and we'll move kind of faster from here. Someone can read the Sanskrit for text 4. It's pretty well known.
Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam. Before reciting the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means accomplished, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead, Narayana, unto Narayana Rishi, the topmost, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author.
Okay, so that's pretty self-explanatory. Before we reach Srimad Bhagavatam, we say this prayer before every time we get Bhagavatam class. We offer obeisances unto, Narayan, who's the name of God, Narayan Rishi, who is also an incarnation of God, Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and to the author of